100 days on a Minecraft Earth. I'm playing on a server that is a scaled down representation of Earth in Minecraft. Towns can be formed and wars can be waged to see which nation will rise to the top. I start my journey out in England. Two weeks ago, I logged onto the Earth server and I was greeted by a map of the world. I could choose where I wanted to start my adventure at. I chose to teleport to Europe as that was where the most action was happening, and I spawned in with only leather gear and stone tools to my name. I knew I had to make my arrival on the server as quiet as possible so I'd be able to build up a town and gather supplies. So I chopped down some wood and met up with a few other players on the server to form a group, and from there we headed over to England where we'd set up our camp. So over the next 2 weeks, we grinded hard. We split off into teams, one group mining in the rich ore hotspots of South Africa, where we obtained gold, which is a global currency on the server. One team built up automatic farms for our base, which included cactus for XP, wheat, sugarcane, and many more. Then the last team built up a fortified castle for the wars to come, as there was most certainly wars coming for us. During our time setting up our town in the UK, we were asked by many nations to join them, with some even threatening to siege and plunder us. We realised that we had to prepare for the worst, so we made a lot of P4 sets, as well as health potions, speed and strength. The nation we were going to be sieged by was the Spanish Empire. They made it their goal to take control of towns from the UK, and they weren't going to stop with us. With our preparations ready and us sitting waiting, we realised it was probably better for us to attack them by surprise than to wait for them to gain more strength and attack us. So I called our members to log online and we headed to their nearest town in the UK, Glasgow. This was a decent sized town, which means it would cost us quite a lot of golds to siege them, which would go into a war chest. We had around 8 players all geared up, and we claimed an outpost nearby so we could store all our spare pots and use it as backup if things went south. We were ready for war, so we headed just outside of Glasgow and placed down our nation banner to start the siege. Sieges pretty much work like King of the Hill, so whoever controls the area around the place banner gets points for their town. After a few minutes, one of the enemies turned up, and they looked to be assessing our numbers and gear, so we killed them. Not too long after, another 2 players turned up the banner, but it wasn't too much of a worry at this point. We realised that the players turning up weren't from the Spanish Empire, but from other large nations in the world. These players were mainly part of the Ottoman Empire, one of Spain's strongest allies and who we greatly underestimated. One by one, more enemies were pouring into the battle, and we were on an even playing field. The fight was around an 8v8 at this point, with players on both sides fighting hard. However, with this being our first fight on the server, and us clearly being the worst PvPers in the battle, players on our team started to panic. People were using up pots way too fast, and the enemy were taking advantage of it. And then it happened, our first casualty. One of our weaker members in PvP had fallen. I'll give it to our enemy, they were great PvPers, but I think we are holding out our own considering the circumstances. I took on a 1v1 with another of the nation leaders that was helping out the Spanish. And in the time we were battling, we also lost another member to the Spanish. So I called the retreat back to the outpost. The enemies followed us with aggression, trying to kill us on the retreat back. Our gear was all broken and our health potions were depleted. I only just managed to get out with my life, being saved by the members guarding our outpost. The enemies were outside our outpost, trying to suppress us to the best of their abilities. But I got all our members to rally back towards the outpost in an attempt to reclaim the siege banner. But when we got there, it seemed like there was even more players than before. We clearly underestimated the power of their allies, and we were very outnumbered. We rushed in, with nothing to lose, doing as much damage to the enemies as we could. This time we had better comms and we were focusing specific targets, but even then this wasn't enough. So I decided to pull the plug and we had to stop as we couldn't continue this attack. So I messaged the enemy nation that I was going to surrender the attack.
I'm surrendering us. Bro, I've got 10 of them around me and I'm just putting the white banner down. I'll go live, hold on. I'm being escorted, bro. No, I'm in no position to make demands here, right?
So with that, we surrendered by using white flag. There was no way we were going to win that war. We'd only be losing more sets and gear. And the moment I placed down the white flag, I was instantly killed by the enemies. Alright, so pretty much straight after our siege on Glasgow ended, the Spanish Empire have now started a siege on us. And after the siege on Glasgow, we've pretty much used up all our sets and depleted everything we have. So it's unlikely that we'll win a defensive siege. So instead of that, I can go in the mines and gather up around 6,000 gold. So when you lose a defensive siege in wars, the attacking town can plunder our town. So basically, we need to get enough gold to make sure that we don't go bankrupt, which in our case is around 6,000 gold due to how big our town is. Around a day later, I had acquired 11,000 gold, which is obviously way over what I needed, but it will come in really handy for future endeavours. Throughout this, I kind of had COVID, so it was kind of a perfect time for me to grind out some gold in Africa. I went to spawn and I sold all this gold, which gave us a crap ton of money. Some good did come from this, however. As I smelted thousands of gold, it gave me hundreds of levels, and using a feature on the server, I could withdraw it all into XP bottles, and with this XP, our team were already able to rebuild our gear in a lot larger quantity than before. It was time for us to go under the radar for a bit, so I turned into a farmer. While the other members were making gear and preparations for the future wars to come, I was just farming, as much as I could. A town of farmers doesn't come across as very threatening for anyone else. So I made a huge patch of carrots and just expanded it as much as I could. In this time, we were in a siege cooldown, which means no one could touch us for a few days. But even so, we didn't want to get attacked the instant that was done, so giving a more peaceful approach wasn't too bad of an idea. Now that I'd finished the farm, I decided to make a farmhouse. To get the materials I needed, I went round to all the shops in the world, and I even spotted an NFT, which for 50 gold wasn't a bad deal in my eyes, so obviously I bought it. I didn't manage to get all that I needed, so the rest of the materials I grinded by myself, and then I was ready to make the farmhouse. I'd already made the design of this in a single player world, however the sheer size of it made around 2 hours to build up, but I think it worked out really well with the overall design of the farm, and actually linked in quite nicely. Alright, so every day on the server an upkeep payment of 8 gold is needed to keep your town from going bankrupt, and today's upkeep was due, and a few towns nearby us have actually fallen into ruin. These include the Isle of Man, Manchester, and a town in Dublin, and all of these are very close to ours, and may even help in expanding our borders a little bit. As long as we're careful and make sure we don't claim too much so that no one can really notice, then I think we should go check them out and see if we can add them onto our claims. So I got on a boat and headed towards the Isle of Man, hoping to expand our borders a little bit. And a small island close to our main base would be a perfect place to fall back on, or just a secretive place away from our main base. There'd already been a bit of building happening on the island, which we could continue ourselves as it didn't look too bad. And overall, this island was just pretty handy to have, as we could colonize it as our town grew. So I left this town, claimed by us, to venture to Ireland, see if this recent fallen town had anything of value. I arrived at the ruins of Athenry. This Irish town was a beautiful farming town that fell into ruin due to inactivity of the owners. I had a look around and was debating claiming this town for our own. However, this town was a long way away from our main base and only really provided us with a lifetime supply of food, which wasn't too big of an issue anyway. They had chests upon chests worth of cooked potatoes, so I took that and then I made my way back to the base. For the past few days on the server, we've been trying to get as many allies as possible, and we've been helping out nations by supplying them with potions so in the future we can be provided with aid. Our town is not yet finished with war, as a matter of fact we've only just begun. While we're getting allies, gear and wealth, we're still lacking in a few players on our own team So if you want to join in the adventure on the Earth, then join our town Discord in the link in the description, and I'll be making this into more of a series. Or you could just make your own town and fight us, it's completely up to you. Server IP is in the description either way, I'm not sponsored, it's just a good server. But if you choose to join us, then remember, we have an underground boat racing course, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.